So here are 4 distinct traits of toxic femininity that I think most people don't talk enough about. And the first one is weaponized sensitivity and victimhood. So what I mean by this is being overly sensitive and using your emotions as a tool to manipulate others or to get your way or to play the victim, like everybody is always against you. And in the most recent pop culture ways that we're actually seeing this is the whole situation with Blake Lively, now Taylor Swift, and Justin Baldoni. And here's why this is very interesting. And I know that for all of the Taylor Swift fans, they might come after me. I love Taylor too, and I love her music. And when I was given this perspective of, it's the 2 girl posse queens that are trying to basically destroy this guy who is definitely a feminist, who is, yoga loving, all about personal growth, all about spirituality. Love this man and what he stands for, specifically around domestic violence. He actually made a movie about it. What I'm more interested in is the fact that, Blake actually used her femininity to create this lie about sexual abuse and in all of these allegations that have come out in their lawsuit, etc. And then, with Taylor Swift pretending like, she is the innocent one, that she had no idea that Blake was using her name, etc., etc. This is a clear example of using your femininity to pretend like, oh, everything is okay, or to emotionally manipulate others to get your way, to get ahead. And think about it, we've all been in this situation. Either we know of a friend or we've kind of done this. I see my daughter, who is 3 years old, love her, but when she needs to get her way, like, she'll do something like, oh, well, Bia's got, this candy or this lollipop. Why can't I? And then she'll shrug her shoulders and, she'll start crying. And as toddlers, as they do, they utilize their emotions. And we as parents need to curb that behavior or stop that behavior. Otherwise, they will cross the boundaries. And guess what? They'll do this over and over again until they constantly get their way. And if they get their way too much, then guess what? They grow up to be like the Blake Lively's and the Taylor Swifts of the world. So all to say is this can also show up as playing passive aggressive. You can also play the victim to avoid any accountability. There's this example of the quintessential woman who is going to, let's just say, a restaurant, and perhaps maybe she says, oh, I forgot my wallet, or, oh, I didn't know I had to pay, or any of those things. But if they're utilizing this in the way to get ahead or to pretend like they lost their wallet, or, oh my gosh, save me, or perhaps even guilt tripping other people in order to comply with what they need, yeah, that's toxic feminine for you. This also brings me to point number 2, playing small in the damsel in distress. So just kind of double clicking on what we actually can see here, using that example again with the whole Taylor Swift and Blake Lively episode, you're playing dumb. So you're downplaying your intelligence or downplaying your strengths to seem more desirable by men, right? And we've seen this in all of the Cinderella, the Little Mermaid films that we all grew to love growing up, that, oh my gosh, I need to be saved. So in Disney's Rapunzel, we can see that Rapunzel itself is waiting to be rescued, waiting for Prince Charming to find her. And she doesn't even know to get out of this castle by herself. She doesn't have the wherewithal. And it's this, attitude of, I can't do it myself, save me. And it's also even downplaying your strengths because God forbid you're too smart, you're too capable, you're too empowered, and you might actually just scare somebody else away. In fact, they might actually respect you more. They might actually like you more because you are brave, you're bold, you're brash, you're owning your truth, right? And so it's actually quite endearing and beautiful to see a woman stepping into her own power. It's actually quite attractive for a man. And I understand that many times we want polarity in relationships, but this is kind of when it's gone too far, and then it becomes a toxic trait. And how often have we been told, and I know that many of us have grown up in situations and circumstances like this, where many times our grandmothers and women in our lineage or our moms are like, if we are too powerful, if we show too much ambition, that we are not going to find a partner. So it kind of comes down from generation to generation. But then at what point does it actually become toxic? When we are downplaying our skills, when we are utilizing it to, get out of a ticket, and, you're speeding on the side of the road, the police officer pulls you over, and, you go to him and you're like, and I wrote this in my book, That Suck Now What, by the way, it's one of the ways that we're actually using our entitlement to, not get a ticket, to win whatever we're trying to win. But in fact, what are we doing? We're batting our eyes and we're saying, oh, officer, I'm so sorry I made a mistake. Well, again, that's toxic feminine trait. So be careful here and be careful of what we are actually passing on to the next generation. The third way that this actually shows up, and this is huge because a lot of us do this subconsciously, I'm actually even guilty of this, is overgiving and this martyrdom complex. How many of you overgive? How many of you say one thing, but then you mean another thing? You say, yes, oh my gosh, I'm going to do that for you. I'll take on that extra project for you with your boss in the work setting, or, the one out of all of your friends, I'll organize the entire trip for you. But then secretly you feel resentful because nobody else raised their hand to help. Nobody else chimed in. You were the only one. And you feel resentful because now you have to take on all of this workload by yourself. And you're sacrificing yourself. Ding, 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 ding. You're sacrificing yourself for others to the point of burning out. While then, at the same time, you're resenting them for it. So you're resenting the fact that, oh my gosh, I have to do all of these things, or I'm slaving away for my two little ones that, sometimes don't pay me any gratitude right now. Well, the woes of a mother. And so toxic femininity can also look like putting everyone else first, but secretly holding on to bitterness or expecting something in return. This is big. This is huge, because I think that so often, especially children of immigrants, many times our ancestors, our elders, our moms, our aunts, our titas, our lolas, they never knew how to claim their desires. They never knew how to say what they wanted, because we are plagued by people pleasing. We're plagued by, fitting into a box. We're plagued by not wanting to disrupt the status quo, not wanting to be loud, not wanting to have a confrontation. God forbid you have a confrontation. So what tends to happen? We have bitterness, we have resentment, we are expecting, because, oh, I did this, I want the other person to show and see what I've done and actually validate me for it, or congratulate me for it, or give me an award for it. They should see what I have done. Well, no, you haven't even shared, hey, this is what I need, because we don't know how to state our needs. We don't know how to state our desires. And so that gets us into trouble. Not only that, this martyrdom complex can lead to serious illness. And I've seen this firsthand in my own family with several of including my mother, my aunts, my lolas. They've succumbed to diseases that really took their life, whether it was cancers that grew, or they got very, very ill because of this idea of this martyrdom, giving when you are not even giving to yourself first. All right, the last one here is, politeness over truth. Now, this is so huge. Now we're prioritizing being super nice, prioritizing being the good girl, and this becomes really toxic. Why? Because we're not being honest, right? If I'm asking one of my team members, okay, well, what is it that you feel for this project to go forward? Or what is it that you need from me? And they're pretending they're being over polite because they don't want to rock the boat. They're being over polite because God forbid you actually say what's honest. Hey, I don't really like that. I don't really think that's going to work. I don't really think that we should be doing that. We should focus our efforts somewhere else. Going and saying that will give you way more respect, way more notoriety, and way more power in yourself that you're actually not agreeing just for the sake of agreeing. Have you ever met that one person that's like, oh, hey, we're going to hang out on Saturday. Well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Well, no, where do you want to go eat? Oh, I don't know. What are you feeling like you want to eat? You want to eat Chinese, Mexican, Arabic food, Indian food? I don't know. Whatever is fine with me. I'm not picky. This is the telltale signs of toxic femininity because you are wanting to be so much more polite than actually being honest. And then if they pick Chinese food and you're like, oh my gosh, but I'm allergic to MSG or soy sauce or whatever. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Why didn't you tell me? Well, I didn't want to be rude. You're not being rude. It's actually more disrespectful. It's more irritating to the person that's with you if you can't just speak your truth. And then, of course, people get triggered because of the fact that we would much rather you speak your honest truth. And here's the thing, I get it. A lot of times people are afraid because they grew up in households where their voices were diminished, where their voices were shunned, where the fact that they couldn't speak how they really felt. They had to fit in a tiny, tiny little box. But this is how we grow and pass it on to the next generation. And now I see this with my young daughter who's 3, who is super bold. This is hard to parent, by the way, but she's super bold. She's super loud. She's super big in all of the ways. And I see now sometimes her classmates are fitting in the box. They're not as loud as her. They're not as expressive as her. And I wonder where in that lineage did that get curtailed? Did that get suppressed? And then by the time they get 5, 6, or 10, or 12, or 13, how else are they shutting down parts of themselves in order to be polite, in order to get validation from other people, because their truth is not accepted? And this often also means they're growing up necessarily avoiding confrontation. How often have you seen that? You have somebody, maybe you're working with them, maybe you're dating them, maybe you're with them in a relationship, and you know that, oh, like, how's everything going? Is everything going okay? Yeah, everything's perfect. Everything's fine. But then they're, dragging their feet all over the home. They're being passive aggressive. They're giving you the silent treatment. They're not talking to you. And you're like, I can't read your mind. What is going on? Can you just tell me what's going on? And they're, closing cupboards and closing bathroom doors. And you're like, what happened? Like, is everything okay? It's because they've suppressed their feelings for far too long that the anger is just coming out of their bodies because they're suppressing their true feelings. They're avoiding confrontation just to keep the peace. They're agreeing just to keep the peace when it's even at the cost of their own personal boundaries. This is so huge. And this is actually my work with thousands of women across multiple platforms, and some of the work that I do at our institute, and of course, some of the reasons why I wrote my best-selling book, That Sucked, Now What? How to Embrace the Joy and Chaos and Find Magic in the Mess. It's so that we can grow out of these habits that keep us small, that keep us complacent, that keep us limiting ourselves from living our truest purpose and being our fullest expression. So, what can you do now that you know all of this? Celebrate a sister. Go ahead and tag what she's doing. Tag her down below if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Spotify, if you're listening to this on iTunes. Tag her below. Let her know what you love about her. Go ahead and call 3 friends today. Give them a voice note and say, hey, I really loved that you did X, Y, and Z. I really loved when you did this. And be specific. Don't just say, I really love our friendship. Don't just say, I really enjoy your outfits. No, Get really specific on what you actually appreciate and love and adore about these women that are in your life. Because as we're showering other women with praise and adoration and affirming who they are and how they are, this is what helps get rid of toxic femininity. Because guess what? There's room for all of us at the table. So thank you for being so brave, and send this to a woman that needs to be a little bit more brave in braving her toxic femininity. There are other ways to do it. I will see you next time.